Hello again and welcome to ISAC Software Academy Linux course. In this lesson we will be covering how to install software from the command line. There are several ways to do this. The first of which that we will be mentioning is the apt package of tools, which specifically we will be covering apt get, but there are other tools in that package. There are also automated scripts, and you can also compile from source. The apt or APT tools stand for Advanced Packaging Tools, and they are the most commonly found software installation package on Ubuntu and Debian systems. It was originally designed to be a front interface to depackage package management system, however is now also able to do RPMs, which is the Red Hat package manager, to allow .rpm files to be installed on Ubuntu and Debian systems. As this course is based around Ubuntu, we will be covering apt primarily. However, we will also touch on automated scripts and compiling from source. As I've stated, apt-get is used in Ubuntu and other distributions based off of Debian, as Ubuntu is not the only Debian-based operating system. It can also install, update, and remove, which is also referred to as purging, any software that it has a repository or repo for. You can add other repositories, non-standard repositories, for software that you wish to keep up to date using the apt-get package manager. Most places that do this sort of thing will have instructions on there, but we will cover at least one instance of this as an example. It should be noted that using a package manager is designed to allow you to easily account for all dependencies that the software may require. In older versions of Linux, you would have to install each package that is required as well as its individual dependencies, which could take a considerable amount of time. This is a streamlined method in which if a dependency was required and not available on the local system, it would be downloaded and installed at the same time as the package that is being requested to be installed is being installed. Automated scripts are the most commonly found method for video driver installs from vendors. Once they are downloaded, they need to be run. The main point there is that in some cases when you download the script, it actually needs to be changed to be executable so it can be run, which is quite often the biggest mistake of new Linux users. And also, its largest downside of all is that if it fails, you have very few options on how to get it to run properly, other than going through and manually seeing in the code exactly where it's gone wrong, which is tedious and time consuming in the case of most individuals. That said, most scripts will actually give quite descriptive error messages and warnings if they do fail, and as such you can use these to figure out where you need to go next in order to get it to run properly and install whatever it is you actually need installed. Compiling from source is the oldest and arguably most difficult way to install. Many older Linux users and obviously Linux professionals will actually prefer to install from source, and there are a myriad of reasons for this. However, chief among them is that it can give a considerable performance improvement, and it also allows you to modify it very easily before installation. We will now cover the practical side of this by providing some simple yet easy to run through and powerful ways of installing. We will be starting with the apt suite, obviously, and hopefully you've learned from the theory side of it what we're going to be doing here anyway, but here is how you would normally do an apt get update command. Now you need to do sudo because it requires a root access, and after that you would type in apt get, or apt-get I should say, followed by the update command. Now what this does is go through each of the repositories that it has listed and checks to see if anything that's installed on the local system, well, to be more accurate, it downloads the list of versions in the repositories at the moment, so that when the next command that we run, which will be all the same, as you can see, sudo apt-get and then update, this is the point where it goes, this version is on this local machine, but out on the real world, on the servers out there in the repositories, there is a newer version. I'll have to go and download that. Now in this instance, I actually don't have any updates that are required, and as such I can't actually demonstrate how it downloads like this via one of the Ubuntu downloads. However, I will provide you with another repository which I want to demonstrate anyway, so that you can see it doing an update. So what we will be using for this particular purpose is the command add apt repository, and at this point, since it is a PPA repository, you put in PPA, and the repository that I will be using for this is the Handbrake repository, which is a video conversion software that is open source, and it's used like so. Now as you can see, after the PPA I use a semicolon and then a folder name and then another folder name after that. When I hit enter, it goes and checks about this repository, and presuming there's no problems with it, which it looks like there is not, I can press enter to continue adding. It goes through and makes a key which is used to verify the source, so that you know you're getting the actual software that you expect to get. Now at this point, if I do a sudo apt get update again, it will check this new repository that I've just added, which will be right down the bottom. There it is. And it downloads the new headers, and upon doing a sudo apt get update, upgrade, it asks that I install the apt daemon, apt daemon data, Python, apt daemon, etc., and all of these are things that it wants to update at the moment, which is interesting given the fact that these were not here before. This is actually not part of installing Handbrake, which we will go through very shortly. It will go through and grab these now. Obviously there's just been a release, so very lucky timing in this instance. However, in order to get what we're after, which is in this instance handbrake, once it's done doing this update, which I'm very glad has actually popped up during this video, we can actually go through and do a sudo apt get install handbrake, I believe is how it's done. I'll just find out. No. In that case, it is in fact -gtk, and this should work. Yep, as you can see, it's found a new package that it will now download and install, and then we will then have the handbrake software, which, as you might have guessed from the name, uses the GTK interface, which is why I made the mistake. Now, this is actually a very good point to remember. Just because you enter in a word that you think should work for apt-get install does not mean that it will actually install what you think it will. In this instance, I thought putting in handbrake would be enough for it to install the handbrake package, but in fact it has a different name, which was handbrake-gtk. This is something to always keep in mind, because it's very easy to forget once you get the hang of it. Now that it's installed, you'll be able to see that theoretically it should come up. It doesn't in the command line, but it should. As you'll see here, it's listed a GNOME menu option, and therefore if I go in and type in hand, it comes up with handbrake, and upon running it, it will run. So it has been successfully installed for the graphical interface through the command line interface. Next up, I have gotten the Netbeans IDE for Java, among other things, but predominantly for Java programming, which you can see is listed here. This is a .sh, which means shell, that's what it's short for, and is an executable script for installations. Now in this instance, I can tell from here that there are no X marks. See, on the directory above there is an X. This X should be here. It stands for executable, and as such this script will not run, which I will now demonstrate. It won't even accept that it is runnable by hitting tab. Now to change this, what you can do is do a change mode, which is chmod, which would be more appropriately pronounced chmod, but it's actually short for change mode. Doing a +X, and this will do it for root as well as sorry, not root. It will do it for the user, the group, as well as everybody. This is a +X to everything, which is why there are 3 R's here. As you can see, this means the user, the group, and then everybody. So by doing this, we'll make it runnable for everybody, and we'll do this on our .sh file. And if we now have a look again, it comes up as green, and you'll note that all 3 X's are available there. Now we might dive into this a little bit more later, but just for the moment, just know that that's how you go about changing something from not being executable to being executable. There are other options available, however. Now to run this, you can simply type in the Netbeans, and it may actually work depending on your distribution, but most of them require you to do / and then the file name. Now by doing this, what you're actually stating is current directory, the / indicating that it is a directory, and then the file name. So it's a little bit of a roundabout way of running a file that's in the current directory. So once we hit enter, it will go through, and as this is a script, will actually go through and do a whole ton of checking to see what's available on the system and what's needed and all that sort of thing. And as you can see, it actually wants a JDK, which I do not have installed, but we'll actually fix this up so that you can see it installing properly. So we will now just quickly install via a Tarball, which is what it's called. As you can see, there is a .tar.gz. Now you may occasionally see it without these three characters here, which would be TGZ, and these are exactly the same, and they are done in exactly the same way. What you do is do tar command v -x v z and f keys you want to put in as options. Now this is X for extract, V for verbose, Z for gzip, and F for the file name, which in this case is JRE, and obviously the full file name there. When you hit enter, it will scroll through, as you can see here, with a lot of different things that it's currently extracting. And when you actually do another directory listing, you will see that there is a JRE 1.7.0_09, which is the directory that's just been created. Now as you can see, there's nothing majorly interesting in here, and this actually belongs somewhere else in the system. In this instance, I want to do an installation into /user/lib/jvm, so I'll make that directory with a sudo apparently, and I will then go back one and move to the /user/lib/jvm location. Now, once we actually go to that directory, which we'll do now, you'll be able to see that it is now listed there, and presuming that it doesn't want anything else, our script should now be quite happy with this setup. So back to the downloads directory and simply running the Netbeans installation for the shell script. Now what you've seen there for the JRE was the installation via simply extracting a tarball, which does occasionally happen for some installs. Generally there's more to it, which we'll see shortly. It now has an issue with JDK, however it would effectively be the same. As you can see, you just go through much the same as you normally would. This is the graphical side to it. Won't continue to install, but you see the point. The next thing I wanted to show you, which is the final thing, is an installation of Nmap, which is a common networking tool. And what we shall do is the same as we did before with the -xvzf and Nmap. As you can see, this one has .tgz instead of .tar.gz. However, it will work just the same. And once we've done that, we can go into the Nmap directory, and you'll see there's quite a few things here, but of most importance is the fact that there is a configure and also a makefile. Now these are what are used to do the rest of the installation, which is done very simply by doing /configure, which goes through and configures everything ready for compilation. Presuming it doesn't have any major problems, once it's done, You then type in the make command, which should be coming up shortly. Seems to be taking quite a while this time around. Not all of them are this time consuming, some of them are considerably faster. Others, however, are more time consuming, and that's something to keep in mind when you're compiling from source. It can in fact be very, very slow. As you can see, they did some ASCII art here for the installation. However, you can type in the make command now, and obviously this now has a problem. It actually has a dependency issue. So with that, it is possible in some cases that the issue is to do with privileges. So trying a sudo make seems to have fixed the issue. And we have more issues. In this instance, you can quite often get away with simply doing a sudo make install. It does not always work, and in this instance obviously it has not. It is however recommended in the instructions to become the root user to do this, and obviously I'll give this a try. Hopefully it works then as well, but this would be a prime example of the issues with compilation of source, and a very good example as well. So I'll just put in there now. Excellent. And do another make, which still has issues unfortunately, and try another make install, which also still has a problem. This is actually a very good example of issues that you can have with compiling from source. I've just noticed exactly what the error is, which is that it cannot find G++, which is required to compile. So I've installed that using apt get as mentioned before, and now if we do make, it should work properly. As you can see, it's running through it a lot further now. We haven't gotten those same error messages that we received earlier, which means that we shouldn't have any issues when we do the make install after this, which is the final step from installing from source. So it's now finished doing its make, and we do a sudo make install to make sure it's installed properly. Upon doing that, as you can see, it says Nmap successfully installed. Thank you.